Well, in 1969, going back to the UGPIC stream that I mentioned earlier, the then head of the National Association of Food Chains, a gentleman by the name of Clancy Adamy, came to Andy Pearson at McKinsey, who he had a long friendship and business relationship with, and told him about the dilemma they were facing in trying to come up with a solution to the long versus short code, and suggested that McKinsey might be helpful in terms of doing a project for an AFC to resolve how long should it be, how short should it be, the question on UGPIC. Andy went to a young associate, a gentleman by the name of Harvey Golub, and asked Harvey to look into this area, and Harvey did so, and along the way came across the fact that RCA had in their Princeton lab this scanner project, and he was able to see that this would have quite an influence on any sort of code solution which the industry was going to come up with. And so he came back and they put in a proposal to Clancy that instead of just how long or short should the code itself be, that the industry ought to be looking instead at the feasibility of this scanning and the requirements that would have to take place to make it happen. And he suggested that they needed a feasibility study of 4 or 5 months that McKinsey would be prepared to undertake. I think that he quoted a fee of $100,000. Clancy was interested in that idea, but unfortunately he had expended all of his research funds over the last 2 or 3 years on other projects, notably Cosmos, computer optimization project that NAFC had been sponsoring. And so he said, I'd really like to do this, but I just don't have the money, and so we'll just have to put it off and see what happens. At about that time, I believe that the then chairman of Procter & Gamble, Brad Butler, became aware of the fact that Kroger was working with RCA on a scanning or front-end automation project, and that it would involve having machine-readable symbols placed on each individual item, probably at point of manufacture. Although this seemed like probably a desirable project, it did raise some concerns, and that main one being that if you had to put symbols on products, you could possibly put one symbol on a product, but if you had 3 different retailers with 3 different systems requiring 3 different symbols, there was no way you were going to get 3 on each product, and you certainly didn't want to have individual inventories of specific symbol marked products depending upon which retailer it was going to be shipped to. They, somewhere along the way, and I'm unclear as to the exact process, but they, I believe, had a couple of conferences in Cincinnati of various industry people, trade association representatives, and so forth. And out of those came the idea of establishing an ad hoc committee to look into the technical and practical feasibility of front-end scanning. And the idea was that the ad hoc committee should be made up of both manufacturers and retailers. They also decided along the way that it should be composed of either chairman or presidents of the individual companies. And in the spring and early summer of 1970, put together a group of 10 companies, 5 manufacturers and 5 retailers, that were combined the ad hoc committee for investigation of front-end automation. That committee was formed officially in August. I believe they had their first meeting in 1970. At that meeting, although all of the sponsoring trade association people were there, they, after seeing a chairman elected by the ad hoc committee, symbolically stood up and left the room, indicating that they were passing the responsibility for this whole area to the ad hoc committee, and thereby taking it out of the hands of any of the 5 individual associations. Bert Gucken, the then CEO of the H.J. Heinz Company, was the chairman elected. And one of their first orders of business was to establish a consulting relationship. And so they appointed 2 or 3 of the members as a subcommittee to solicit proposals. They did so from 3 or 4 consulting firms, including McKinsey Company. I was given the responsibility at McKinsey to respond. At this point in time, Andy Pearson, who had done the original work with NAFC, proposal, had left for Pepsi. And so I dusted off the proposal that they had given to Clancy a year before, updated it a little bit, but didn't change it substantially, and submitted it. And the group decided to accept the McKinsey proposal. And so starting, I believe, in October of 1970, we were the consultants to the ad hoc committee.